Hey, everybody.
Hello, Miss
Welcome,
Cristine.
everybody.
While you guys are coming in, you know how to use the chat feature? Maybe just give us a little bit of context here. I have 3 questions. Where are you coming from? You can just let us know, like, let's see who's the farthest away. And then on a scale of 1 to 10, how do you rate your day today? I want to see what we're dealing with.
Well, I'm very blessed. I would rate mine 8, 9, 10, and certainly on the very positive scale. So,
Nice,
and we'll,
nice.
we'll officially get started in a moment or two, but let's think about those questions. Let's put some answers in the chat and get
Tommy's
ready
in
for
Tucson.
time.
Nice. Looks like we're having a good day.
We're international, so Tucson, Tavi, you are not winning the farthest person. I have no doubt about that.
Alberta's pretty good.
Yeah.
The other question I have too is, if you were here for the first session, did you practice writing down good things at the end of the day? Not that this is homework or being graded, but just curious.
Although I think action is what changes the world. So listening is important and getting new knowledge, but I think knowledge plus action is what changes the world, not just knowledge.
Yeah. Look at all these good days that people have had today. I like that.
A 9, a 9.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so Yanni, I guess you're going to have to figure out the distance now and do some math for all of us, but I think wherever you're coming from, very much appreciative, and I think very reflective about how the world is flat and how, even a small company like C-Suite, we have people from all over the world and we speak to people from all over the world pretty much every day. So that's a pretty amazing thing. We'll get started in 1 minute. Even with technology, we like to let people roll in, but our culture is 6:03. You roll. People here on time and want to be respectful of that. So anybody write down good things from last time? Because that is important. You want to train your brain to see the good. Your brain is good at seeing negative. All of us are. So, all right. Well, we're going to hit it. You ready, Chris?
Yeah.
All right. So my name is David Wolfscale. I'm sure most of you know that. I'm one of the founders of C-Suite Impact, and this is a very exciting day for me. I really believe that as we grow as an organization, we also have the ability to impact other people within our community because we can put together things like this. And this is really, one of the passion projects for me, which is, changing people's lives. And really, I think starts from what is up here. And we wanted to give people, real stories, real strategies, real solutions, because I think there's so many pathways to having an impact on yourself. And it's more about when you're ready to listen, and when you're ready to listen, and when you're ready to take action. And so whether you like Chris's ideas or my ideas or others, it's about taking action on them. And the impact is huge because I see it all the time in people who do take those actions, and all of a sudden they blossom, and we've all seen people blossom. So I want to thank Phil, who I saw here. This is a passion project of mine, not a business development project, but every project takes resources and effort. So thank you for that. I want to thank sales support because, again, they helped make this vision easy for me and easy for Chris. We had to focus on doing our stories, and they helped us make everything else happen. So thank you to all our sales support team. If you give them a thumbs up, I'd appreciate it. Yeah, I know Tavi's here, Mike's here. We have other people, from who are going to do additional presentations. Tavi's going to do one on August 29th. And again, real stories, real people, all of which have had a huge impact. And so excited to have Chris here. Chris is, somebody who I think I've seen blossom and has changed over the time that she's been here. Chris is the leader of Impact Strategic Funding. She helps people find, and her team find commercial debt. And she has an impact as a leader, because a leader who has the mindset of helping the others, being aware that others might need help, typically is a wonderful leader. So, Chris, the floor is yours, and thank you very much.
Thank you. I am going to share my screen real quick. There we go. I know one of the things like about being leaders, right, is we're always doing things that make us a little uncomfortable. And that was one of them. So I'm looking around the room and I see some friendly faces that I recognize. Thank you for being here. And there's some people I don't know. I hope that this time is beneficial for you. David already gave an introduction and you'll see this and have seen this, so we'll move right on past that. As we designed and thought about the Thrive sessions that we've had one, this is session 2, we have 3 more planned. We really just thought about the fact that as leaders and as professionals, our happy face is always on the outside, right? We need to be strong. We need to look strong. We need to make good decisions and do things that will encourage others to either use our services or trust us in leadership. But the reality is that leaders have a lot of things going on the inside. And so we just wanted to open the conversation about that. We look at social media, at least I do, and everybody looks like they're doing great all the time. But what's really behind those posts, what's really behind and what's really going on. So that's why we're here. The next one is going to be August 29th. I wanted to make sure I mentioned that. Tavi's going to be sharing about honestly, I'm not sure, Tavi, but you can tell us in a little bit at the end. And a quick review of session 1, if you didn't join us, if you weren't able to make it, David talked about, not looking in the rearview mirror and choosing to look at what is ahead with positivity and excitement. And also he's mentioned often, you should be your biggest fan, and gave us the recommendation of writing down the good things of the day, which is a practice I do sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes. So as I thought about how to share, it's always, the first thing when you're speaking to a group, you're supposed to know your audience. And when doing something like this, it's almost impossible to know your audience because we're online. Many of you, as you show, are from all over the country, international. We have international visitors here. So it puts a little bit of a challenge on what part of the story matters. What is, what's of value to this group to listen to. So I know that there's nothing that I'm going to say that's going to be super outrageous or different. Probably everything that I'll share will probably be, hopefully, pretty universal. That's kind of my goal. I don't want to get into super big details. And the other thing about what I'm going to share too today is that most of my learning and education has just been my own curiosity about my own experience. And I found resources on the internet. I've found resources on Instagram, which is a big teacher sometimes. Everything is easily found, and most of it, all of it is science-backed. But I hope it's helpful just to be having the conversation. I'll tell you, one of my things that I struggle with sometimes is being a female in a very male-dominated world. I sometimes think, well, my experience is just because I'm a woman in a man's world, right? But as I speak with men that are willing to open up, I find out it's actually a human experience. It's not a female experience. And that has encouraged me to just keep talking about what I'm learning and what's going well and where I'm struggling. And this whole talk is really going to be just, not a master of these things, but someone that's just working my way through. One of the challenges of doing an online conversation like this too is it's very hard to get any interaction because I can't hear you. Most of you I can't see. If I was in a room with you, I would much be much better at understanding the dynamic of the room. So I want to encourage you, if anything I say, like, I don't know, puts a thought in your head, please type something into the chat. Feel free to interact in the chat, and I would be happy to stop everything if, if there's a question. I almost prefer that. So just a few things about me. Very simple life. I'm a country girl out in Western New York. I live near Buffalo, Niagara Falls area. Brought up in an intact family, which I know is unusual in this day and age. 4 siblings, all of us, and my husband the same. His family was intact, and he had 3 siblings. All of us live in Western New York. On any given Sunday, we could all be in the same room watching the Bills play. It's just family is part of my experience. Faith also, and with those 2 things, it's kind of always had this, serving others mindset. So that's kind of where I start from. But professionally, I've definitely experienced a very unconventional path. At least that's how I tell the story. And maybe you'll have a different opinion when we're done. Started, first in family business, always, 16 years old, being able to work for my father in a pharmacy that he was a co-owner on, always being around retail. And then, going to college, getting married, motherhood, going back to college to finish my music education degree and get my master's. Ended up working in a manufacturing environment as a controller, of course. And then from there went into consulting. And all those stages of life have had their challenges, right? Again, nothing earth-shattering there. And some of those things were much more natural to me. Being a teacher, music teacher especially, was a very natural thing for me to do. It was a role that I knew I could perform and be successful at. But working in the manufacturing environment as a controller, I had no idea what I was doing. I really didn't. I was okay, and we took the company, through a turnaround. We did some good work there, but it was definitely much less natural, and it required a lot of grit. Being in consulting, that's something that every day things come to me and I just say, oh my gosh, I have no idea what I'm doing. Almost every day. That requires a lot of grit. But also being a person that knows leadership requires, that front-facing braveness and strength. It means that sometimes what you saw on the outside didn't match what was on the inside. And I guess that's a question. I mean, can you relate to that? What the external, persona that you show might not match what's going on the inside. What I started to notice, especially in the post-teaching days of my life, what I noticed a lot was I was missing. I started to see, a typically, I don't know, I'm a high achieving kind of person, but yet had lost my energy, all these things, enthusiasm, low mood. If you ask me what happy felt like, I don't know I could have told you. It wasn't unhappy, but I'm not sure I could have told you what happy felt like. Just a general sense of physical weakness, even I started to notice, loss of stress resilience. I noticed I was gaining weight. I noticed the 2 a.m. wake ups. Anybody else have the 2 a.m. wake ups? I don't know, what is it, about between 2 and 3:30. When I'm in a stressful, not great spot on the inside, that's when I wake up. Now I learned, and I'll tell you how I learned this, but I did learn that there's a reason for that. Your body does all of its rebuilding and healing during the hours from 10 to 2, and then from 2 to 6 during your night pattern is when your brain and your mind does its own healing. So if you ever wondered about why it's always 2 or 2:30, it's a physical thing. It happens. But being in an uncomfortable place meant that I felt like I was missing and I wasn't showing up. And so I realized I really needed some help. I wasn't thriving. I was in my mid 40s and thinking, is this all there is for the rest of my life? And if I've already experienced the best days, what in the world are the next 30 or 40 years going to look like? That's not a great spot to be in. So I hired a health coach, a holistic health coach. And what he did for me was he kind of pulled apart um, these four different aspects, really. You know, he pulled apart diet and exercise, which I think everyone would expect, and sleep, but he also pulled apart the happiness aspect. And we started looking at how I was viewing my world and the things I was saying. And that's why I really wanted to hone in on the storytelling aspect, because what I was saying about the things that were happening in my life was impacting my actual physical body. I didn't understand it, but I learned it to be true. And I found some common themes when we started working on this. There's some very common themes that were running constantly in my head. What is wrong with me? Why can't I, whatever the thing was, why can't I do this? Why can't I? And also, I'll just never understand. And the one that I probably should have put on here in caps is, I don't know what I'm doing. Now, did you hear me say that already today? I just realized I already said that to us. Those were the stories that were going on in my head. And when you start your day and go through your whole day with what is wrong with me, it definitely impacts how you perform on the outside. It also impacts the things that you say on the outside. I found and have found myself throughout my whole life actually being a person that is constantly apologizing. I may have already apologized today and not even realized it in this session. But when our external narrative is impacted by our internal narrative, think about how that impacts how we show up in relationships, how we show up in a meeting. I don't know how many times I have, maybe I haven't said it, but I know I've sat at a table with a client or with a lender or whatever, with a team of colleagues and just thought, oh man, I don't belong here. I definitely don't have the experience. I don't know why I'm here. And it's because it started with the whole, like, I don't know what I'm doing, you know, that internal narrative impacting the external narrative.
And Cristine, this
Yeah.
is Ralph. I think that imposter syndrome is real, but I think it's actually a good thing. It helps people. Have you ever watched people who seem so comfortable presenting in front of, just overconfident, and they feel good about themselves presenting in front of a group of people, and they're horrible. The people that tell me before they get up to speak, I don't know if I can do it. I'm afraid. I'm scared. The whole thing, they do an excellent job. So I think that works at times.
It can, right? It can.
Yeah.
And sometimes it causes us to show up a little bit more carefully,
Yes.
right? Thanks, Ralph. I appreciate you.
I didn't mean to interrupt. I'm not sure if we can, but I just
Yes,
wanted
please.
to. Okay.
Yeah, so I don't know if I mentioned a whole lot, but really my thing is teaching, and so I much more prefer an interactive conversation than a presentation. Um, so one of the things I think that I learned during working with my health coach that was not like, I mean, probably maybe everyone knew this, I don't know, I didn't know, but I had no idea that how I was thinking was actually affecting my body. There are teachers out there and scientists that have been talking about stress and how it's the root of really all disease, stress. And they say these things, but what does that really mean? When I break that down, I think, okay, so stress is how I view the world. You know, it's really an internal game. That's why I said what happens on the inside. How we view our experience is what kind of churns that stress. And that stress, the reason that it is so impactful is because it impacts our chemistry. And there's a lot of chemicals that inside happening all the time: cortisol, oxytocin, our endorphins, dopamine, serotonin. Like there's all kinds of stuff that we hear the buzzwords of. But what in the world does that really mean? And what Ryan showed me, my coach, was just that as I was maybe having a negative thought about myself, that meant something was happening in my body that was impacting me on a cellular level, not just just having a bad feeling or having low self-esteem, but it literally was impacting my biology. As we worked through things and as I started thinking differently, the whole project that I worked with them, I lost 25 pounds by you know, dealing with all four aspects, but the one that was the most impactful to me was my thinking, and it had a lot to do with cortisol. I'm not going to get into the science. You need to do that on your own, but it's something worth considering. The way we tell our stories internally will change our actions. If you really don't feel that you belong at the table, you probably won't make the call to get yourself at the table. If you really don't feel that you have much to offer, you'll probably be quiet anyway if you are at the table. If your internal story is telling you that you've already lived your best years, then you're probably not going to be that inclined to try and make tomorrow great. You're probably going to just get through the day. If your internal story is saying people don't care about you and people don't see you, you're probably not going to try too hard to reach out because you might be concerned that nobody will see me and I don't want that reaction or that rejection. So the way we tell ourselves, now think about it on the positive side. If I tell myself that I have a lot to offer, then I'm going to show up to these meetings a lot more confident, with a lot more information, prepared, ready to make a difference for someone. Our internal story will change our actions. The way we tell our stories to others will impact how others receive us and how we will interact. This is a really dumb thing, but those of you that know me for real know that I'm not exactly a tall person. But when I go to networking events, everyone's always taller than me, like way taller than me. Everyone is, not everyone, but often it's men, because that's where I end up. So I'm always in these things where I'm in these situations with very tall men, and here I am, this little person. Now, if I go into that room thinking nobody can see me anyway because I'm little, like I'm going to sit on the fringe, and I do. I've done this many times. I'll just sit on the outside and wait. Maybe somebody will see the lonely person on the outside and then come talk to me. Sometimes I feel taller than I am, and I will just go and break into that circle and, introduce myself and be more outgoing. But I have this internal narrative that I've always had, it is that tall people can't hear my voice. You can tell me if that's true or not, but it's one of those weird things I've had to actually work through so that I can be more effective with networking. I don't know if I should have shared something so weird, but that's real. On a more serious example of our storytelling, if you come in as an angry person because your narrative, your internal narrative is bitter and angry, how likely are you to be someone that other people want to talk to or to have another conversation with? That's another piece of it. We have to listen. When we improve our internal story, we increase our capacity to grow. When we're feeling more positive and we are telling ourselves that there is more in this life, there is more to do, I am not done with my impact in the world, or whatever it is that you need to hit, you'll keep learning, you'll keep growing. So how do we become better storytellers? The first thing I say is just start paying attention. Listen to how you introduce yourself. Listen to the things that you're saying to your family. Listen to what's going on the inside. And if you're one of those rare people that doesn't have an internal dialogue, which my husband says he doesn't have one, so I know that happens for some people. But listen without judgment and just pay attention to what you are hearing from yourself. And then get curious about that. I kept hearing myself, I kept hearing myself just sounding so negative all the time. And I'm like, I am not a negative person. Why? What is going on with me? And I had to understand. And this is where, well, maybe you need to meet with a counselor. Maybe you need to start opening up to a friend. But my encouragement on this one is, when you hear yourself and you're not sure about what that means, you're worth discovering why you might be stuck. Take those steps. They're good steps. And my space bar is not working. All right, there we go. And then finally, to become a better storyteller, you actually have to change your story. And so if you do find something specific that's living in your head, maybe it's a person's voice, maybe it's something somebody told you, maybe it's something that you remember from growing up, something mom or dad or siblings said to you. Why are you letting them live in your head? Why are you, allowing that thought? I'll tell you, David Wolfskill has been really, really helpful for me because he calls me out all the time when he hears me say something that doesn't belong and that I have to flip the script. It's been super helpful. And here's just a couple things from my own self, how I am working to be more accurate. And the first one really is self-reflection. Is the internal story I'm telling myself or the external story, because again, it's inside and outside, is it actually true? Did it really happen that way? Or is this just how I feel about it? Focusing on the negative side of the story or the positive side of the story. This goes back to David's talk last time. The same story has a lot of different facets to it, or the same experience. And which part of that story am I telling myself over and over again? And why am I judging myself so harshly? How is this story impacting my expectations of me and others? One of my internal dialogues is really around perfection and thinking somehow I should be smart enough to enter into new things all the time and know what to do. Who knows all the things, who knows everything the first time? Anybody? I don't think so, but yeah, somehow I feel in my story that I should. So I've been working on that. And one of the ways I'm working on that is very short mantras. My brain can't hold big things, but it can hold small things. And one of the things David's helped me a lot with is the be you, be great, be myself, show up the way I am and do it well. Again, in a lot of situations on the daily where I'm just not so sure about things, but I'm trying to be positive. Yes, I can. And yes, I belong. And really one of the most important foundational things for me is to trust God and to take action. The words that we use matter in our storytelling. What adjectives have I added that are adding stress or drama? Dramatic adjectives might enhance a story to get attention or make it more memorable or more interesting. But when you are using words that are super negative or overly dramatic, I mean, I hear this all the time. People are always saying, oh man, they screwed me. Okay, so let's just take that apart. You take that negative way of talking about a conflict and you're constantly the victim. And there's no way for you to be better if that's how you're going to always tell that story. If you tell the story of, well, it's not working out, or, you just use different kinds of words, you may have a better opportunity to change the story and change your actions and change the situation. Another one that's important for me is the difference between I am and I feel. I often, especially when I was working in the manufacturing environment, which was very challenging, I was always saying, I am so overwhelmed. But there's a difference between saying I feel and I am. I feel overwhelmed. That is true. I feel very overwhelmed. But am I overwhelmed? Am I like face down on the ground, run over by a truck? Like literally, am I overwhelmed? If I'm overwhelmed, it means that I have been overcome. I physically cannot move forward. I can't do anything. There's a big difference in I am and I feel. And then this is also important, the body scan. I feel my stress. I've been feeling it in the last several weeks in the back of my shoulders and in my neck. And I have to ask myself about that. What's going on? Why am I so tense? Why am I not breathing? Why am I, feeling responsible for so many things or whatever it is? But your body is going to give you some clues. And this is kind of an interesting one. The neurons that fire together, wire together. And that's a concept that isn't new, but it kind of can be illustrated like this. Think of the first time you had a bad interaction with your boss or someone that had authority over you. How did your body feel? I'm sure you probably weren't jumping up and down, probably weren't feeling really great. It was probably a negative, probably like me, or probably your skin was red, your heart's racing. How does that impact the next time that a boss, doesn't even have to be the same boss, but a boss just asks to talk to you and doesn't give you any context? You notice how maybe your heart starts to race again? You notice how maybe you're a little unsure of how that's going to go. You don't feel positive about it. You don't know why you're worried because you don't know, there's nothing going on, but yet you are worried. Those neurons in our body are telling you that you need to be careful because the first time you had a run-in with a boss, it was really bad for you. So our bodies provide stimulus sometimes that impact the story, and we have to kind of work with that. The reality is that that was a bad situation the first time, and my body is saying I should be worried, but my brain can say, there's nothing I should be worried about. We're actually doing really well. We're hitting all our targets. We're doing everything we thought we were supposed to, Now, you might still get bad news. I don't know that. I can't predict that. But be careful of, what is your body saying to you? Is it bringing you into a negative story because of something that happened in the past? All right. So I feel like there's so many things to talk about our stories, but what we feel is important is to actually have some time to speak together in small groups. And so we're going to break up. Yanni's going to send us into breakout rooms. And my questions for you are very simple. What is your internal dialogue, right? Like, how do you manage it? How does it impact your life? And maybe there's something you can relate to from something I've shared. But we're going to take, I don't know, Yanni, 15 minutes or less in small groups to just talk about this idea of the internal story and the external story, and see how you're doing and how you might help others. So as we bring things to a close, I hope you had a good conversation. We had a really nice conversation in our room, and just the reality that our bodies and our minds really do go together, and we talked about that. Here's my challenge to, for the group. And maybe this isn't an every day or an each day, but just when as needed. Take 5 minutes to tell yourself the story of your day. Or maybe you need to tell yourself the story of a meeting or something that happened, but listen to yourself, how you verbalize what you experienced in your day. And don't judge it, but what do you hear out of your voice? Do you recognize that person? Is it a person you still love and know? Or is it coming out like a crazy old aunt that you remember hearing, back in your old, childhood or something? Like what are you hearing? And then think about that story that you're hearing. Is it helping you move forward, or is it holding you back? Is it helping grow something, or is it helping take something apart? Is it true? There's always that whole thing. Is it true? Do you need to set your mind on something higher and better than the details you're getting caught in? I think that this action of really listening to yourself and not judging yourself is going to be important. And then when you hear that, just say it again, but say it a different way. And again, I think David's still here, but he's done that for me many times. Mm-hmm. Just think about this a different way. I can hear him saying, I see this differently. Tell yourself the story again. All right. Because of time, I did have some resources that are really great. And if you like to read, so there's some book selections here that have been really helpful. And a lot of these are kind of in the holistic sense of, body, mind, and some of them hit on the spiritual as well. And then some podcasts that I'm a big fan. I know I'm not usually like a bandwagoner type of a person, but Stephen Bartlett's The Diary of a CEO, he has some great resources on there. And often his podcasts are long, like 2 hours. They're kind of long, but they're great. And Dr. John Deloney is fabulous too. And our next session with Tavi is going to be on August 29th. And Tavi, are you able to just give us a minute or so of, what you're going to be talking about?
Sure. Thank you, Chris. And I have met Chris in person, and she may be small in stature, but she is giant in personality and courage. Well done, my friend.
Thank you.
Well done. Well done. So yes, hope you all will join me on August the 29th. I think it's 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where I will talk about the power of intent. And intent can be used in our personal lives when we're trying to understand other people. Can be used in our professional lives when we're negotiating. But really having a clear path to what our intent is, and sometimes that of others, can minimize stress, help you feel that you have a little bit of control or impact on what's going on around you, and lots of other things that, again, hopefully everybody here will join me on August 29th so that I can share some tips and tricks and what's helped me along the way. So thanks again, Chris, and back to you guys.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to that. Thank you so much for being here tonight. One of our desires with these sessions is that it will develop relationship and support too. So if there's anyone on the call that you've met, in the chat or small group, feel free to reach out to Yanni. I think, Yanni, I'm volunteering you. We're happy to connect. And also, I'm a person that loves a nice one-on-one great conversation. So always open to that.